Hey.
What's up, Josh?
Well, it is MSP Community Live time. How about that?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't been on in a little bit, but I think I only missed 1 week, so
We
maybe
did.
not. How's everything going?
Great. Do you got all your fingers and toes after 4th of July?
Yeah, so I don't remember who I was talking about this with. I live in New York, and in New York, you really can't get any like real, truly dangerous fireworks. You get like sparklers and like little stuff like that. Stuff that's going to cause serious injury, you have to drive over the border for that. And I was just a little too busy to do that this year. How about you?
Yeah, no, we my days of getting the dangerous stuff are in the past. That's readily available here. Within a 20-minute drive, there's probably 30 different fireworks stands, but I don't really get
Damn.
anything more exciting than fountains at this point. So we'll
Mm.
we'll save that for the bigger shows. But did thoroughly enjoy the 3-day weekend. I mean, golfed every day. Got some stuff down around the house, and so nice to be back in a little bit of a routine here now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I did the same thing. I went to the town fireworks, but over the long weekend, did kind of nothing. It was enjoyable. I just relaxed, caught up on some things, and as you can see from the background, I'm now traveling again. This is that same family office I've been in a couple of times, but I did bring real lighting this time, so you can actually see me as opposed to historically on in this location. So things are pretty good.
Yeah, good. And we have to give the sports update here. So I think the Mets are what 1.5 games behind. I know the Padres are 5.5. They're half a game behind the Giants, but I mean there's plenty of games to go. But how's baseball
So
been going for you?
Well, so the Mets are still in the process of completely self-destructing. Their rotation is held together with duct tape at this point. They're top of the line. They went like 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. So I like to say teams had us right where they wanted us with runners on second base. It's a little rough in Mets land last night, but the Yankees at least did something exciting yesterday. They were getting no hit through seven, and all of a sudden came back to win that game in extras, which is cool and cool for the Yankees. They've been terrible in extras all year, and all of a sudden had a really exciting game. So that was pretty cool. A guy on the A's was clocking fastballs at 104 last night, so that's pretty awesome. Good stuff happened in baseball, just not necessarily for my team.
Yep, that's how it goes. Well, we do also have a guest on here, so let's bring our friend Ann on to give us some more sports talk. So how's it going, Ann?
It's going well, and I had to chuckle that you're a Mets fan. I was a Mets fan when I was a kid because I'm from New York, but guess it's not. We'll, we'll see if they ever do
It's,
well.
uh,
But yeah,
it's character. The one good thing now about being a Mets fan is that they're now the richest team in the sport, so they can just outbid everyone, which is kind of fun. But other than that, it's a little rough being a Mets fan.
yeah. So yeah, things are going well here. The yeah, 4th of July, you can't get the good fireworks, or I guess the dangerous fireworks in Massachusetts. But I'm always amused. I was in Wisconsin last weekend. We saw you just buy the stuff in the store. They have pop-up tents and little plazas. And my parents live down in Florida. Used to be able to you walk into Target and there's a giant display. That always kind of freaks me out because, yeah, they were uh, nothing more than the sparklers were illegal growing up.
I like how Target next to the fireworks display has the giant no smoking sign, like as if you
Yeah,
could smoke in Target to begin with, right? I feel like it's just marketing to make you think they're more dangerous than they are.
yeah.
Well, and did you get any spotted cow while you were in Wisconsin?
Spotted cow.
Spotted Cow. Yeah, it's a regional beer you can only get in Wisconsin,
Oh,
and it,
okay.
Oh,
Well, I missed a treasure then.
you really did because it's not like I wouldn't say it's life changing by any means, but it's a pretty good beer. But what makes it unique is you can literally only get it in Wisconsin.
Oh,
In fact, there was a brewery in Minnesota not too long ago that tried having it on tap, and they reclaimed the keg and sued the brewery. So they take it very seriously.
wow.
oh wow.
So yeah, if you're in the Midwest, that's generally if anyone's going to Wisconsin, you usually bootleg a couple. Like, I mean, it's legal to buy, but you do feel like a bootlegger because you're multiple cases of it. And I'm not even that big of a drinker anymore, but I'm going there in 3 weeks, and I'm for sure going to have some spotted cow because it's a must.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Um,
imagining them like stopping you at the border of the state, like you're smuggling drugs out of it, like having it in your car. Is it like that?
I mean, no, if you buy it there, it's fine. You just can't buy it anywhere that isn't Wisconsin. It's yeah,
Okay.
I love my
All right.
Wisconsin trips. So, before we get into our stories, Ann, do you want to give a quick overview of who you are and what you know just give us a synopsis.
Yeah, so I'm Ann Westerheim, and I run a security-focused MSP in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And time really flies by. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, which is kind of shocking. I worked in the semiconductor industry for years before that, and then when my kids were young, I decided I was gonna be a consultant and have freedom over my time. And I figured I'd probably go back to the semiconductor industry in a few years. But this has really blossomed. The whole MSP space has really blossomed into uh, really an amazing community, an amazing industry. And I really love that we make an impact every single day, hopefully a positive impact every single day.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. We had a great conversation about your cyber on Main Street as well. Ann's doing some really cool stuff. Definitely appreciate you hopping on and sharing your knowledge with us. So that being said, let's get
Yeah.
into our first story. And if you haven't heard this by now, well, let me be the first to introduce you here. There was a very large outage on a MSP distributor. So Ingram Micro outage is caused by SafePay ransomware attack. The IT giant Ingram Micro suffered a major outage caused by the SafePay ransomware attack that began Thursday morning, forcing the company to shut down internal systems. The employees discovered ransom notes on their devices, but it's unclear if data was actually encrypted. The attack reportedly came through the company's Global Protect VPN platform. Key systems, including the Xvantage distribution platform and Impulse licensing, were down. Microsoft 365s and Teams remained operational. SafePay is a relatively new ransomware group, active since November 2024 with over 220 victims. Ingram Micro hasn't publicly acknowledged the attack, only citing ongoing IT issues. But as you see here from the bleeping computer, that do have sources that did provide this information. So, all that being said, this is definitely another kind of eye-opening for the MSP channel in that supply chain and vendor management is an important part of what we do, and what access that not only those type of companies can have. And again, I want to be clear that this isn't just obviously the Ingram Micro was affected by this, but this it's a cyber attack. I mean, it could happen to any of those vendors, and that's why you should have vendor management. So Matt or Ann, you want to give your thoughts on this at all?
Yeah, I'm just going to
Go ahead,
chime
Ann.
in. We're Ingram Micro customers, but we don't have a very big footprint with them. We use other distributors, so it didn't really impact us that directly. But it is, like you said, it's a supply chain attack. It could severely impact. It could have been anybody, and an attack in your supply chain can vastly disrupt your your operations. So it's a painful reminder, and it's almost I get a little nervous before holidays because they always time stuff like this before holidays. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's like in the back of my head, I'm always worried about that. Um, I think uh, it's just a painful reminder for the business that we're in, and it could impact anybody.
Matt, what are some
Yeah.
lessons learned that so even in Ann's case or other MSPs that may not have been affected, what are some lessons learned they can take from this?
Well, I think there's a few takeaways from this. The first one, from my perspective, is it's a reminder that there's such a big vendor footprint now that basically everyone is going to have some kind of issue at some point. And whether they publicly talk about it or not, it's going to happen. I think for MSPs, there's a couple things that I would be doing if I were still in that seat today. One is I would probably be thinking about what kind of access do these have to my systems. Now, in Ingram's case, there wasn't any evidence that things that were able to touch like licensing, provisioning, or other access that you might have to 365 tenants directly were impacted. But I'd be thinking about that and thinking, do I have to get into any kind of password reset or key rotation? I know they're not using direct passwords, just a general statement. But thinking about the access, right, getting back into that reduction of blast radius paradigm, just thinking about how can I minimize the potential impact, taking into account the high likelihood, and I intentionally used impact and likelihood, right? We're talking about risk here. Thinking about the high likelihood that any of my vendors might get popped at some point. The other thing that I would be thinking about, though, is this is one that this made some pretty significant headlines. I don't know if it hit like, Forbes or like the big business periodicals, but I might think about whether I need to talk to any clients about this. This is something that you may have seen. You may get questions from clients like, do you guys use Ingram? How do we know we're safe based on all this? And have some discussions on how you might answer that and whether it makes sense to talk to clients about that. I know there's not a lot of information directly for obvious legal reasons, but just think about what you need to do, if anything, to reassure your clients that they're safe. And that's kind of it. And, like I always say on these attacks or on these news of attacks, a lot of times it's really just a reminder to keep doing the things you're already supposed to be doing, right? There's not a lot directly that you can do to deal with Ingram Micro getting popped, but think about what you can do to minimize their access to your environment and how that might come off to clients.
Yeah,
Yep,
I think
I think
you
well
raised
said.
an important point there. Like, how deep do the tentacles go? Is it financial information, or can it go all the way through to Microsoft tenants and provisioning licenses that could really disrupt customers? I think one of the other things is there's sort of like a sigh of relief, like, oh, good, that's not our main distributor, but it could have been. And when you hear the stories like that, communications also, because there was a lot of they came out with an initial statement and they filed the SEC, the 8K or whatever it's called, with the SEC, which didn't have a lot of information in it. And I can understand, they shouldn't speculate and all that, but there was kind of like a period of time where there was no information. And then there was, online
Yeah.
people saying like, oh, I'm getting all these out of office messages from, my rep saying they're on vacation. And I think it's a mess. There was kind of a gap between communications, and then they started communicating again like Monday, Tuesday. And I think that, yeah, in physics, nature abhors a vacuum. You can't, people make stuff up or they have their own impressions of it. And it reminds us we were impacted, or some of our clients were impacted by the Rackspace kind of meltdown a couple of years ago. And then, okay, we can't email people information, but yeah, we put a status page on it. We posted a blog and then had status on it, like to just tell people every so often, like we're doing everything we can to, restore all of our clients. And I think that a lesson learned is, having that communication plan. And I think that they kind of fell short for a little window of time there. And I understand it's complicated and they don't want to speculate and say things assumptions that may not turn out to be true, but just some like, hey, we're working on this. We understand how it's important, because
Yeah, and you just made a
it
good
severely
point.
impacts.
And you brought up something I think is worth thinking about, and that is, right, you may say it's not our main distributor. Do you even have more than one distributor? Right? Not all organizations do. And like from a business continuity plan, yes, there's all this stuff here, but can I order what? Now that's a little complicated in 365, because if you order from a second distributor, you're technically starting a new subscription, not just adding counts to an existing one, but still at least be thinking about like, what am I going to do if they're down for an extended period?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is one of the things I wanted to bring up too, as that lesson learned is the looking at the supply chain. What is your single point of failure, right? If you just have one vendor providing this specific thing and that vendor, something happens to them, or something happens to that supply chain, then what do you do in that? So again, and having that before it actually happens is important. So definitely thoughts go out to all those who are still working that. It happened over the holiday weekend, and having worked multiple security incidences over holiday weekends, they're not fun. So
Yeah.
hopefully you guys are getting some sleep, and hopefully getting on the other side of things, and looking forward to some follow-up statements as well. But that being said, let's go ahead and get to our next story coming to us from our MSP. Have you ever fired a customer due to a single person, a single individual's behavior and attitude as a client? Person in question is one of the directors, maybe a co-owner, but is that worth severing the relationship over just one person? Any of you have stories? So Matt, we'll start with you here since Ann got to go first last time.
Actually done it? No. Threatened to? Yes. So I won't go into much detail because it'll be obvious who it is, not that they're likely listening to a show about service providers. But one of the biggest things is you have to respect the person on the other end of the phone, especially if it's one of my technicians, or I mean, really anyone. But if you're going to yell at somebody, yell at me, please, Mr. Client. Don't yell at the person trying to help you. And we had a number of, we had one client where one individual really was trying to take advantage and just really disrespecting the techs trying to help with their issue. It was a lot of after hours stuff and a lot of the partially their own refusal to make upgrades and put new systems in. And we eventually had a look. You need to like lay off or make this person not call in, or whatever you have to do to get this to stop. And that was enough to curb the behavior. Honestly, I think the person didn't last too long at the organization anyway. So we never actually got to the point of actually having to let a client go for that reason, but it certainly has been used to almost do so, or at least the threat of it was enough to get the behavior to stop.
Yeah.
And any stories from? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's just one person, but one person can have a lot of influence. The rotten apple or whatever. But we had a co-managed situation where it was a mutual separation in that case. But a company grew, somebody came into place who didn't really want to take our recommendations, and it becomes a point where it's such a giant liability for us, and it became unpleasant. And I think that's the time where you have to realize it's always tough to lose revenue, walk away from revenue, but it can also really damage the business. And I recall another situation that pops in my mind of some people are just like really psycho, and they're just mean to people. So I ended up going to sit down with this particular client. They did the whole thing, made me sit in a conference room forever. I just like worked on my mail. I just worked on stuff because I knew exactly what they were doing. It was like a little stupid power play. And then I'm pretty mild mannered, but this person went psycho on me and just started yelling, turning red, and I'm just sitting there, and eventually I said, maybe let's maybe meet up for coffee another time, and I just sort of pleasantly left. But I mean, it was like real weird, off the charts, like you need to go to a doctor kind of behavior.
Oh, wow.
And then I ran into this person. I don't want to get into a lot of details either, Matt, but I ran into this person at the hair salon like a year later.
Oh, no.
And then she came up and hugged me and acted like I was her best friend, and it was just really, really weird.
That's
But I mean, there's
strange.
people of all types out there.
That's fun. And I've definitely had my run-ins with single individuals, and depending on who they are in the organization. I mean, having conversations with the point of contact and say, hey, this isn't okay. You need to deal with it. Like the sales guy at a client who tried fighting me. That was fun. Didn't listen to any of the recommendations. Didn't back up his stuff to the OneDrive, despite being told. Despite being trained on, hey, put your stuff in OneDrive so it's backed up and not just on your hard drive, and he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And the hard drive failed, and then I had to deliver the news, and his exact quote was, what do you mean it's gone? And I'm like, it is gone. And then he said, well, how about you come down here and say that to my face like a man?
Oh my God.
I love this story.
It was fantastic. And honestly, I was so taken aback by it that like I wasn't even upset. It was just more funny at that point. Like, you're gonna fight me over like missing files. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
But then that goes directly to their supervisor to deal with. But on the flip side too is, let's turn this question on the MSP, is, have you lost a client because of one person in your MSP? And I think you said it best, is one person, but they can have a big difference, right? So knowing the ripple effect of just that what that one person can do and cause, And especially from clients as well too. If you have, again, that one person that your techs just can't stand dealing with or hate dealing with, it can really sour that relationship. And that's, what it is. And sometimes you have to have those hard conversations, especially if they're mistreating staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big, though, it depends question, to reuse our tired phrase. If it's a newer client and somebody makes a big mistake, yeah, you might lose them. If it's an established client, that can forgive a lot of even big mistakes if you have a long standing. But if it's somebody who's been working with you for like 3 months and a tech makes even an innocent mistake, you might lose them over that. So we've seen stuff like that happen for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to a crazy case. We had a small, relatively new client, and one of our techs went in to work with them. So turns out this person saved all their important emails in the deleted items folder. So, which he cleared out. So that one, yeah, that one didn't go well when kind of went in there to clean up the mail. And Mary writes in the comments here, mutual respect is a key in any functional
Yeah.
relationship. And that's really important. You build that over time. But I remember one of our techs accidentally deleted files for a customer, and it was terrible. Like, I was panicked. I was like looking at our insurance, and then this person was like, "Oh no, it's not a problem. We could just we're gonna we can just make those files." And it was like some spreadsheet or something that they need. Like, it was gonna be a lot of work to recreate it, but they were just so pleasant. And I was like, they weren't mad at us at all. They were just um, really understanding, and that was like that. There was a lot of good relationship investment over time that led to that point where they understand, okay, yeah, I can see how this mistake happened. But um, it is it's a it's a thing you got to think about a lot. And then the
Yeah.
team member who sometimes you have somebody who's very maybe knows a lot and is bright and doesn't treat the rest of the team well. That's a problem too internally. And I think you have to I think there's always something to learn from a situation, and I think if you can learn from it, and maybe you make a change if you have to make a change. But also your emotions, and when you get past the emotions, I think it's worth looking into, okay, why did you keep working with this client, or why did you keep working with this tech, or whoever, whatever the situation is. There's some things to look at there.
Nope, absolutely. All right, we'll continue moving on here to some more fun conversations. So, next story: what is the most bandaid-y setup that you've done for a client, either permanent or temporary? And then he goes to go into the
Oh,
story,
man.
which you can definitely read on this. But I will say, my comments going into this before we start sharing stories is this is, I think, what really makes kind of the MSP world fun, so to speak. But I think it really drives home the point between business experience and fresh out of college experience. Or, don't get me wrong, the home lab, the degrees are great. Having the knowledge, the certifications is great. But all of that is in a perfect lab environment. And then you go work for, MSP or even internal IT, and you run into some of these things where you have to come up with a crazy band-aid solution on the fly. And, hey, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary fix. So, and any thoughts or stories? Well, Ann, we'll start with you here.
Well, that story that you just posted up there, I see your helpers are here. Uh, the story you just posted was so crazy, and that is like you have to know a lot to be able to do that. That was like band-aid after band-aid after band-aid, and they made it work. I thought that was pretty impressive and kind of fun. Trying to think, we haven't had anything that extreme. We did once take somebody's hard drive and put it in the freezer to cool it down. We actually were able to get data off of it after that. And then the other one, we had a client that had their server in their bathroom, and it was an office of all ladies, and it's just really awkward that the server was in the bathroom. So that wasn't something that we pieced together to fix, but it's something we had to deal with customers. But I do sort of love the stories. I was on a GTIA ISO call yesterday, and somehow we were talking about the stuff we were supposed to be working on in the meeting, and then somebody started talking about their new curved monitor and the specs and this, and everybody like just dove in because we all love this techie stuff, like all the the resolution on their monitor, and is it better to have one giant monitor and segmented or multiple smaller monitors, and like it's just kind of refreshing because that's the fun part of what we do, just solving these puzzles.
Oh yeah, yep.
So I
Matt, go
can
ahead.
think of a couple of specific stories, things like, yeah, some of them involve backup exec or a lot of like restore kind of stuff. And you probably heard my tire joke. It's not called restore exec, it's only called backup exec, and that's how things usually go there. If I can get philosophical here for a second, though, I've noticed that the longer I was in this game, the less I did this kind of stuff. When I first started doing IT work, I did a lot of this kind of Rube Goldberg kind of duct tape and bubblegum kind of solution just to make things work. And these days, or certainly at the end of my MSPing day to day, a lot of this stuff is met with, well, no, we're not doing this. Just buy the right thing. Here's the quote. Do you want it or not? Right? Like this kind of stuff, I think, is almost a sign that you've been around the industry a long time, or that you may be newer if you're doing a lot of that stuff. You just don't engineer things in a way that you end up having to do this. And I think as techs, it's sometimes easier for us to say, let me come up with this crazy solution, than slide over the quote that's, 50, 100K to do it the right way. And e- that just gets easier with more experience to say, look, we're not like going to cobble together something here. Like you have this issue, here's how to fix it, and that's it. And I don't know if that's a universal sign of like longevity or maturity, but I certainly found that there's a stark difference to the frequency of doing this kind of thing from when I first got into IT and these days.
No, I'll 100% echo that statement because I'm like having a hard time thinking of a story because I'm like, I don't remember the last time I actually did this because there's two fixes. There's the temp solution and then there's the permanent one. And more and more it's like, hey, we're going to do this the right way. And, thinking back, a lot of this was definitely in my early years in my first MSP, which was definitely a little bit more on the immature side, but it was, hey, we need to do what we need to do to get up and going. And that includes,
We all
hey,
were.
if something goes down and you're
Yeah.
going to Best Buy and you're buying the old WRT routers and just like, hey, this is going to be crappy, but guess what? You get to limp along and until we can get something going. Or, a lot of our clients too, and that was back in North Dakota. I mean, we're driving an hour and a half to get them, and there's nothing within miles. So you're there with your backpack, and that's it. There's nothing you can do unless you're coming back another day. So figuring out just how to get them back up and limping along until you can get the proper solution in place. So yeah, a lot of definitely, I would say Best Buy switches and routers to get that, or figuring out just different registry hacks to to just make things work. And you're like, you know what? I don't know why this works, but it does. So if it's not broke, we're not going to fix it. But to Matt's point, I mean, yeah, I can't recall the last time that I can think of who've done one of these.
You do have a good point though,
I,
Josh,
I
right?
think,
And so there's a mantra: you solve the business problem first, and so do that, right?
yeah,
Get them, and that might mean running a network cable all across the office or putting in a temporary unmanaged switch. I think that's a
yeah,
little different than some of the stuff you're talking about in the post, like the really crazy out there stuff. That stuff I would still do, right? If I have to go run a 100-foot network cable across somebody's cubicle, then that I would still do today if I had to. But the really crazy out there stuff, not so much.
yeah. I think, yeah, solve the business problem. So if you can get somebody back up and running, but as long as they understand this is a temporary solution, so you don't, for business continuity. But I know it comes up a lot, and it is an important point that you raise. Like sometimes folks will want to, like, especially with backups, there's so many different ways of backing up, but they come with different risks, and sometimes it's tough to say. Like we'd be putting ourselves at risk if we allowed a customer to cut corners on doing something. Like, yeah, we could get it to work like that, you know what? But if they have a problem down the road, it's going to be on us. So it is. There is a time where you do have to say, like Matt said, like here's the right way to do it. and we want to do this the right way. But we will bail you out so you can function in the meanwhile.
And I know, like our AV guys, one of them that does 3D printing, and he's like custom 3D printed some pretty cool, I wouldn't say band-aid solutions, but like, hey, this isn't working the way it should, and we can't figure this out. So he's like, I'm just gonna go design a 3D printed thing and real quick, and bam, now it snaps right in. Like that stuff is super cool. Definitely
MacGyver.
respect for that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, well, let's go ahead and keep on going here because we got 3 stories left. This one here is a story that is near and dear to my heart here. Just a question. Is service really this hard? Looking for collective wisdom of the experts and veterans here. So hopefully we fall into that category. You might be barking up the wrong tree, but it seems like most prospects come to us with service and responsiveness complaints about their prior MSP, not counting those with security incidences. While we prioritize appropriately and mostly stay within our SLAs, service delivery can be a challenge. Does anyone have any theories on that? Are we all that bad? Do we all just suck? Or is it just really hard to make people happy? Is this a goal that can ever be achieved? What do you guys think? We'll start with Matt this time.
I think there may be some selection bias here based on the fact that this is being based on conversations with prospects. They're prospects because something went wrong, right? If you're a long-standing happy client, you're probably not interviewing. I mean, hopefully you are talking to some occasionally, but you're probably not actively out there looking for a new MSP. So I'm wondering if this is a case of the ones who are unhappy are the ones who are actively initiating the sales process and like inserting themselves in the top of funnel for you. As far as the core question, is service that hard? I mean, kind of, but not really. And I'll use an example. So if you're out there driving, right, and everyone universally says, man, drivers in this city are the worst anywhere, right? And everyone on the road's an idiot, except for me, of course. Everyone says that too. And I think it's just that you happen to notice the driver that ran the stop sign and not the 300 other ones you saw that day that didn't run the red light or didn't run the stop sign, right? It's just a case of the bad example really sticks out to you. And that's what you kind of remember. You see, like, okay, everyone's like that. But really, no, because, I'm from, just like Anna, from New York originally. And man, there's a lot of bad drivers here, but there's like 10 times as many good ones that just went right through the road or down the parkway. Maybe not down the LIE because that's a parking lot. And they just go about their business and you don't notice them. I think it's just a lot of that.
Yeah, I think there is some bias there. It's funny talk about drivers. There's Boston drivers though, so there are some really crazy drivers around here. I think service. I think delivering great service and technology is. I think it is a challenge, and I don't know. I think you can always work at getting better at it, and just little things about training your team about what to say to a client, like just blurting something out that you might be thinking like, oh, I wish I thought of that like an hour ago or whatever. And you get the complaint. For troubleshooting takes time, and obviously when you get to the answer, it's like, there's the answer. So training I just view it as something that you want to constantly work on improving. And I agree, Matt, that there's some sort of bias in the population set, because if you're talking, if somebody's looking and interviewing new MSPs, it's probably because they're there was something that fell short. But I met an interesting guy who does sales for an MSP in the Boston area. We were at a networking event. The guy just totally cracked me up because he says he does a lot of cold calling. It's like, first of all, like people, like I don't answer the phone because it just I'm always doing something else. And he says, no, yeah, it works. And he goes, everybody hates their MSP. And that was his mantra, and that's his whole vision. He goes, everybody has something that they don't like about him. And if you think about it, like a lot of times you go implement something for somebody, and that like you're following documentation, the documentation's wrong, and I don't know, like Windows 11 will just do something really weird because it felt like it, and it's Microsoft, and there's a lot of things we have to deal with that you sort of just you realize there's some complexity in tech. I remember the very first time I saw a microprocessor under a microscope, and I was just amazed, like that, like it's even possible that any of this could ever work. But then you get people who just expect everything to always work all the time, and I think that element of technology does make it hard for us to please people. Or you get like, oh, this is slow. It's like, well, we have bought stopwatches for people so we could time people when they say something is slow. It's like, I think there's an element of technology, but I think also it's something that you need to constantly work on improving the quality of your service delivery. And it's not just the technical side, it's the people side and how people talk to customers, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's the point that I definitely want to make as well. Is most MSPs, they don't fail on the technical side. I mean, they started the business because they like technology and they're good at technology. Where they're failing is that communication and the trust aspect of it, right? It's not so much the SLA for fixing the issue; it's the communication, and clients are judging on that perception. To bring it back to the restaurant, which I normally always do. So in the talk I gave at IT Nation Secure, so before we get into the analogy, but at the top, the start of my talk
Wait, that
is
was a
I
fabulous
literally,
talk, by the way.
thank you. Um, but I literally say, hey, let's collectively, like, tell me a story about the time you had great service. And it took like a good 15 seconds for someone to raise their hand and actually say what it was. And it literally just happened that morning from the event staff at the hotel, regarding a gluten-free thing. And then I flipped it and I said, okay, now tell me the time you had a bad experience. And immediately, we didn't even get a story because everyone was ready to tell their
Yeah.
story, and it was immediate. So it really goes to show, to Matt's point on that selective bias and how quickly you remember the bad experiences, versus the good experiences.
Yeah.
And what I like in this too as well is, I'm sure we've all been in a restaurant where your food is taking a while, right? And you're just like, you're impatient and you're getting upset and you're hungry and you just want your food. And then it comes out and you're like, no, that took forever. And maybe it was only 10, 15 minutes, but it felt like forever. Now, we flip that, and now let's have a server that continually checks in with you and says, hey, I'm really sorry that your food should be coming out shortly, or that the kitchen's a little behind tonight. Is there anything I can do for you in the meantime? Let's get you some refills, or even, hey, let me get you some chips or some veggies, or just something, and just apologizing, letting the transparency of the situation. Guess what? It doesn't change. The kitchen's not moving any faster because of the server communicating, but your experience is that much better. So again, same thing in tech. To Ann's point, Windows 11 is doing something dumb. Updates are taking a while. A project is going off the rails. But if you're not communicating with that to the client, their perception is, well, maybe these guys don't know what they're doing, or this is ridiculous. And again, to your microprocessor, I mean, we're literally shooting lightning bolts through rocks, and it's working, right?
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating thing. But again, if you don't have that communication and the trust, it's just you're going to fail, unfortunately. And that's where the differentiator is. And maybe service is that hard. Unfortunately, the IT people, I think more and more their soft skills are becoming a thing, but generally, it is something that a lot do struggle with.
Yeah.
And that's where you make your biggest difference, for that reason. So yeah, always go back to the restaurant.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and go on to a quick fun story here. I was hoping Henry would be on for this because I do like
Yeah.
his name. But let's talk about business names. My 7-year-old daughter asked me this morning why there was IT at the end of my company's name. I explained it was an acronym. She didn't buy it. This got me thinking from a branding and marketing perspective. Does having IT or tech in your name automatically put you in the same bucket as every other company with IT or tech in their name from the eye of a prospective client, even if you have the most amazing, unique selling proposition out there? Do you think the name is that important when it comes to the MSP?
I mean, it's a little important as long as it's not bad. And I'm gonna use an example. Not, I might regret this, calling someone out. For the history of me ever buying certificates, I never bought from Namecheap because it was a terrible name that I would have trouble selling to. Like, can you imagine going up to the board of a company and saying we're buying a bunch of stuff from Namecheap? they could have like the best stuff in history. Maybe they do. Like it, the name matters as long as it's not like gimmicky or bad or like too clever for its own good or any of that stuff. Beyond that, I don't know how much it matters. Although I am a little tired of seeing companies that use IT and like try to think they're original by using it to mean the word it, like fix it, IT kind of stuff. Um, that aside, I don't put much into it. The name itself, you're probably not seeing until you get references from someone or word of mouth or see it in marketing or something. So as
Yep.
long as it's not horrible, I don't know how big of a difference it
Yeah.
really makes. Sorry, name cheap if you make good products.
You're calling us out here at Centrix IT. I mean, most people just call us Centrix, but it's fine. But it's in the branding. I mean, we have our different divisions where we're, all of that. But there's a shop in my town that's amazing called Green Eggs and Ram. I mean, that's fantastic.
That's
It's a
the
good
thing
name.
is, do tech people get that? Like, does the general population, their audience, get that? And I'm
Yeah,
imagining with
probably not.
Namecheap,
Yeah.
with Namecheap, they probably have a giant customer base that loves that. That's going for like, yeah, I
Yeah.
may as well do this
And
on a
you
cost-effective basis.
if you go back in the day before there was Google and all of that, your name had to start with an A, so you got to the front page of the yellow pages in the phone book. So you had a lot of that's
Yeah.
why you see a lot of like Ace Towing or things that start with an A or even double A.
Yeah.
So now that's not really a thing anymore. But Ann,
Yeah.
what are your
Good
thoughts
point.
on this?
Yeah, I think that putting tech or IT in there lets people tune into like, oh, that's a tech or an IT company. So I think it's positive, and I agree. But I always get questions about my company name because it doesn't have tech or IT in it. And one of my friends asked me, well, anyway, I made up a generic name because I was just going to start being a consultant. It wasn't even necessarily going to be IT, small business IT, what became the MSP industry. So I wanted it to be kind of general. And there was an ice hotel in Sweden that had kind of a similar name. And I wanted a domain name that was short. Um, and so I was doing this like New Year's, like I'm doing this. But people will ask me, one guy asked me, like, does it help you or hurt you to have a company name that sounds like a type of sushi? Like, how do I answer that question? So,
Do you like
How
sushi? I don't know.
how
yeah,
so I was just thinking back to my Yellow Pages reference, but if you don't have tech or IT, I wonder how that hurts or helps you in SEO department when we're talking about Google. So I think having like when you're searching IT providers near me or something like that, if you don't have IT in your name, um, do you still pop up or hey, maybe you don't want those references of someone doing a quick Google and you want to go off of personal recommendations. But is that
yeah.
something that is that you've struggled with at all or that you know?
Of not having that in the name.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And I'm thinking of a friend of mine who runs a very successful, very well-run MSP with just initials in the title. And you would say, oh, that's a bad name, but they're really doing a fantastic job and have a great client base and they're growing. So I think yeah, unless it's something like totally crazy that would uh, turn people off, I don't think there's that much in the name.
Yeah. I know like
Yeah.
I was hoping to have Henry on here because his is like Phantom Tech Solutions, I believe. And I'm like, that sounds really cool. But I wonder like how much, again, does the name affect anything? And I think the agreement here is unless it's something egregious, it really doesn't matter too much.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
all right. Well,
Cheap, cheap
we got
IT.
time. Yeah.
Cheap IT might really take off.
Yeah. Uh, perfect.
It
All right.
might,
Well,
and my theory would be proven wrong immediately.
I mean, if you're competing for that, the lowest price point and high volume, it might work. But all right, let's go ahead and go to our last story here. And this one comes to us from the IT Managers subreddit. And I think this is a good one for us to weigh in. How do you balance being hands off versus too hands off with your team? So this person has been leading a small IT team for a little over a year, and one thing I still haven't fully figured out is how involved should I be in their day-to-day? I don't want to micromanage. They're all capable, but sometimes I wonder if I'm being too hands-off. Like I'll check in on a project and realize something's gone sideways, but nobody flagged it. Or one thing that I'll kind of add into the story that the OP didn't say is if you're not working in and around the tech, that you might your skills might not be what they were when you were all hands on keyboard. So have you guys found a good balance to strike? We'll let Ann go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm kind of just the vision that popped in my head is like those bumpers on the bowling lanes where it keeps the ball in play. Like I think there's if you don't let go and have the team take care of things, you can't scale. You're going to be stuck. You'll be a bottleneck. You're actually going to hold the business back. So it's a whole like letting go of the rope. And then yet there's on the other side, you need to balance that with making sure that you have good metrics to um, keep your eyes on things. And I do think you need to maintain technical skills to have the respect of the team and also know um, when something is really going awry and needs some sort of intervention. You can't be, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You do need to be involved. But um, I view sometimes I joke that if I go to a conference, it's a training experience for everybody on the team. But in a sense, it is like I always have my phone and people can message me if there's something going on. But by and large, the team takes care of everything. But there was a case where a project was not going well with a client. I thought when I reflected on it, I thought it was because I should have been a little more involved than I was. So that's that kind of like that course correction as that bowling ball's going down the lane, and I need to go back the other way a little bit. But you have to you have to kind of let go of that need to have control and understand every little tiny detail because you'll be the bottleneck.
I think Ann nailed this. So a couple points I'll make to the original question in the thread. What the heck is going on in this company that something can go sideways for 2 weeks and nobody knows about it, whether you bring it up or not, right? That should be in the weekly status meeting. Somebody, hey, I looked at the timeline on this project and see you're behind schedule or whatever it is that went side. Like there's a reporting KPI metrics problem here before even getting
Yeah.
to that issue. As far as how much leash to give your team, Ann said it perfectly. You do need to let them fail because that's the same way that we all learned how to do everything and are continue to learn how to do everything. I like to try and keep my technical skills up. At least certainly when I was project managing and running professional services, it was I would let my team design things, let my team deal with the issues, and just kind of be there. Man, almost like a parent in some ways, like just kind of watching over them, making sure that they didn't get into too much trouble, but letting them get into a little bit of trouble to get their skills up and get their, help them improve. And I think that's the balance, is to figure out at what point your team running into issues becomes detrimental to the overall goals of your business or team or department, whatever case it may be. And inserting yourself before that happens, before it becomes like problematic to the client relationship or the overall business goals. But to what Ann said, you got to let them fail a little bit. It's the only way that they'll get better, especially if you have other things you want to be doing at some point instead of micromanaging your team resources.
Yeah, I got a perfect restaurant story for this again, as I normally do, but so this was in between when we were opening a new store back in town. So there was only one store, but we were opening a new store. And while they were finalizing the construction and everything like that, they needed to train the employees for it, right? So we're now utilizing the one store we have to train additional managers or kitchen staff. So we don't have a full green staff day one for that new store. So my role did really transition to more of a hands-off like training role where at the time I was the kitchen manager, and instead of like running the kitchen, assisting with anything, my job was to literally stand there and observe and like help out, like make sure that they're following the quality standards, and you know, just really just kind of sit back and observe and you know, instruct the others to make sure they're doing it. And I got so much crap for that because you're like, dude, you're standing here like making sure that we're doing ounces on chicken. Like what, like, why do you get to do that and all of this? And like you know, you clearly, to Ann's point, like to earn that respect, you have to have that little bit of like, hey, I know how to do this and I'm in this position. But like I couldn't, like I was told to be hands off by the upper management. And then there was a day where we had Toby Keith play a concert right across the street at the event center, and we were short staffed. So it was like, hey, you are not supposed to touch anything, but we need you. So I literally ran one of the stations solo during a crazy concert rush and instantly gained all of the respect, because I'm like, that right there is why, because like, you know, I got this down, right? And now it's more of a teaching moment. And going back to the IT, and I heard multiple great talks on this topic as well, is you if you want to scale and you want to grow, you have to let your other staff take over. And it might be different, right? It might not be the way that you interact with the clients. It might have a different relationship with them. And even the quality might not be as good. But the more that you insert yourself into there and you're like, oh, you're not doing it right, that means you're not trusting that person's management skill and you're not letting them grow. Instead, that you're just kind of like, they're doing the grunt work, and it leads to them being, you know, burnt out and not happy, and there's no growth and all of that. And, you know, they leave, and then the next, you know, lead tech becomes that role, and the same thing happens. And eventually, like, you're getting in your own way. You have to sever that at some point and stand there with the hands in your pockets. And as much as you want to jump in and help, you don't, unless something drastic goes wrong where they're drowning. And you grow your staff so that way you're able to take time off, or you're able to grow and open a new store or a new branch, or focus on marketing efforts, because you know at that point now that they're comfortable running the business or running the kitchen while you're away.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, we got 1 minute left. We covered all the stories. We did it. What events do we have coming up here? We have ChannelCon at the end of July. And of course, as always, we have our monthly IR games. So please check that out. Matt, and anything that you guys want to plug that's not on this list?
IT Nation Sydney is coming up. August? Yeah, August. So that's still open. If anyone from Australia and New Zealand is watching, I'll be there. If you the people you would expect from IT Nation Connect Us will be there. Should be a good time.
Ann, how about yourself? What do you have going on?
I'm gonna be at ChannelCon, and I've been on a few IR games, and I've missed many because of schedule conflicts on Friday. So I don't know if I will, because I may be able to make the one at the end of this month. Those are really great. So I definitely want to plug that. ChannelCon is going to be really big this year, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'll be going to Can IT Con, which is actually the next or beginning of September. So looking forward to that. And then IT Nation in the fall.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to get those on the event list. Thank you guys for being on, and thanks for being an amazing guest host. We'll definitely have you on. Unless there's anything else you guys would like to say, thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Josh and Matt. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
This has been a broadcast of the